restoring men in history, and I wanted to take a look at Richard the Lionhearted, because what do we want to do? Look at great men and great military leaders. So Richard the Lionhearted had a lot of courage, resilience, and he showed it at this battle. He showed it many times, but especially this one, and he had a massive victory. So let's take a look. When men were men, and I like that title for you men, because what are we doing here? Forging men. Today in history, Europeans pulverized jihadists. The sheer ferocity and valor, of course, this was, I think he wrote it September 7th, so what's his name? Raymond Ibrahim. The sheer ferocity and valor, as context, in late August 1191, Richard the Lionhearted, at the head of a large force of crusaders, set out from Acre to Jaffa. Along with the fierce Syrian sun, the Christians were harried by a nonstop deluge of arrows. Now, here's the thing. From the hordes of Saladin. So he who a few years earlier had all but annihilated the Crusaders at the Horns of Hattin. So let's look. Harried by a nonstop deluge of arrows. They kept going. Could have stopped. Determination, perseverance, they have it. Resilience. Despite the casualties from arrows, sunstroke, snake bites, starvation, and disease, the Christian warriors remained undaunted, and that's what we want to be as men, right? We want to be undaunted. We want to go on. We want to never give in like Churchill, and pressed on. And that's what we want to do in life. You're going to be under attack in life as men. So the question is, are you going to keep going like Richard the Lionhearted with courage and resilience, or stop? If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share. We would appreciate it. Thank you. Saladin's own biographer expressed dismay, quote, "I saw various individuals amongst the Franks with 10 arrows fixed in their back." Imagine that. Continuing with 10 arrows on your back. And in Ephesians 6, it talks about what? The flaming arrows, right? So there's a spiritual battle going on too. And that's the other part. But there is here, right, too. Consider the endurance of these people, bearing exhausting tasks without any pay or material gain. And that's these crusaders doing it for a higher purpose than themselves, right? Consider the endurance. They're going, they have resilience, bearing exhausting tasks without any pay or material gain. Who would do that today? Who lives for a larger purpose today and would go risk their life without any gain? Finally, on September 6th, as the Crusaders emerged from a dense wood, there in the vast plains of Arsuf, they saw all the forces of Islam marshaled before them. So they see all these forces. Did they quit? Did they give up? Or did they go on? From Damascus in Persia, from the Mediterranean Sea to the east, writes a chronicler, there was not a single warlike Muslim people who Saladin had not summoned to him in crushing the Christian people, for he hoped to wipe out the Christians completely off the face of the earth. Battle commenced on the morning of September 7th, 1191. Who would win? Wild din erupted from the Muslim camp. Drums, horns, cymbals banged and brayed to reverberant cries of Allah Akbar. Maybe the wrong pronunciation. And other horrible yells. Allahu Akbar. As the Crusaders knelt in prayer, and what's in Ephesians 6, prayer, right? And went into battle formation, the land all around resounded with the echo of the harsh cries of the Muslims and roaring noise. Suddenly, in the midst of this terrifying racket, thousands of Turks rushed down on our people on horses, driven like lightning. The dust storm caused by this stampede filled the sky like a dark cloud. Behind the galloping Turks ran a devilish race, very black in color. That's the chronicler. In this manner, the Muslims fell on our army from all sides. There was not a space for 2 miles around. Imagine watching out and looking, and you see 2 miles of enemy troops. What do you do? As they kept up their persistent assaults, so they kept hitting them, persistent assaults, that inflicted very grave losses. So you're watching your friends, you're watching your fellow knights fall. What are you going to do? Unlike the better rested and provisioned Muslims, remember, these guys had to march in. Muslims were rested. The already exhausted Crusaders fought back. You see, they didn't quit. These Crusaders, not just Richard the Lionhearted, had what? Resilience, perseverance. Unhorsed knights were seen walking on foot and returning blow for blow. And I mean, if I'm correctly remember this, the Saladin had much more cavalry in this battle than Richard the Lionhearted. I believe his numbers were vastly superior in cavalry. I think it was, I don't want to give the quote, maybe anyway, returning blow for blow as far as means and strength allowed, even as the Turks galloped about and continued to rain down darts on them. I think he had between 10 and 14,000 cavalry, but I'm not sure. For long, Richard commanded his men not to break rank, but to stay in a defensive posture. Only when the entire Muslim army had gotten close enough and their horses had tired would he give the signal for the counteroffensive. He wanted to wear them out, right? Draw them in. Inevitably, however, and this happens sometimes, you can make the best well-laid plans, but things go off in war. 2 knights charged out. They could not bear to wait, and they burst out of line, whereupon everything was thrown into confusion. They charged and began slaughtering their enemies. The rest of the Christians heard those 2 calling out. What do you think they were calling out for? Loud voices for St. George's aid as they charged boldly on the Turks. And so immediately followed suit, charging as one of into the relentlessly attacking enemy. Richard now had a decision to make, right? Great military leader. He responds, and great military leaders can adapt and change the plan. What does he do? He signaled for the general assault, and he sped in. He led from the front. This is a great military leadership. Richard the Lionhearted led from the front. He goes into the fighting. And where does he choose to go in? This is an interesting point. He goes in the fighting at the thickest. Remind you of anybody else we've talked about? He broke through his own men and crashed with thunderous violence right into the enemy. Richard the Lionhearted goes right in. Quote, stunned by the strength of the blows he and his force inflicted on them, the Muslims fell back to the right and to the left. So watch. Your initiative, your courage can force an enemy to retreat and can break their what? Their resilience. Will they hold up if you're showing force and committed and persevering? That can scare people. Stunned by the strength of blows he and his force inflicted, the Muslims fell back to the right and to the left. Many were butchered on the spot, while a great number would, but headless corpses ridden, trodden underfoot by friend and foe, driven into battle frenzy. And the words of the chronicler, and here's the words of the chronicler, stay with us here. King Richard pursued the Turks with singular ferocity. Ferocity is a great word, isn't it? King Richard pursued them with ferocity, fell upon them and scattered them across the ground. No one escaped when his sword made contact with him. Wherever he went, his brandished sword cleared a wide path on all sides. Continuing his advance, with untiring sword strikes, he cut down that unspeakable race as if he was reaping the harvest with a sickle, so that the corpses of Turks he had killed covered the ground everywhere for the space of half a mile. Think about that. Corpse for half a mile. The rest panicked at the sight of the dying and gave him a wider berth. Constantly slaying and hammering away with their swords, the Christians wore down the terrified Turks, but for a long time the battle was in the balance. Each struck each other. Each struggled to overcome. So in a battle, sometimes whomever has the most resilience is going to win. Whoever has the most courage, whoever has those virtues of never quitting. Each struggled to overcome. One drew back stained with blood, the other fell slain. How many banners and flags, pinions, and innumerable standards fell to the ground? In the end, the Christians prevailed, and the rout of the enemy was so complete that for 2 miles, there was nothing to see except for people running away. Imagine that. Although they had previously been persistent, swollen with pride, and very fierce. Pride comes before the fall, right? Arab sources confirm the magnitude of this feat. Saladin's lofty and invincible stature collapsed overnight. So think about how this battle changed history. Richard the Lionhearted, through this battle, changed history. He, however, tried to blame his men as the Crusaders under Richard continued making progress and consolidating their hold on the coast. Saladin berated his crestfallen captains. The Christians traveled through the land of Syria just as they like, without meeting any opposition or resistance. Where are my soldiers' great boast and brilliant exploits now? How the people of today have degenerated from our noble ancestors who gained so many brilliant and unjustably memorable victories against the Christians, victories which are retold to us daily and whose memory will endure forever. One of Saladin's emirs dared offer reply. One of Saladin's emirs dared offer reply. Most sacred Sultan, saving your majesty's grace, you have blamed us unjustly, for we attacked the Franks with all our effort to no avail. He continued by lamenting Western armor, which is not like ours, but rather incalculable, impenetrable. But that was not all. Quote, there is something especially amazing about one of them. And here's what we're talking about. Here's the focus of today. Richard the Lionhearted. Watch what he says about Richard the Lionhearted. You want to be like Richard the Lionhearted? Here you go. There's something especially amazing about one of them. He threw our people in disorder and destroyed them. Notice how powerful that word is, destroyed them. We have never seen his like, nor known anyone similar. He was always at the head of the others. In every engagement, he was first and foremost. Now that's a great leader, right? First and foremost. It is he who mutilates our people. No one can stand against him. And when he seizes anyone, no one can rescue them from his hands. They call him in their language, King Richard. So Richard the Lionhearted, which is the story of the day, had courage, the valor, resilience, and all these magnificent virtues, which you men can have and will need in life, because life's going to come at you, right? Life's going to be a battle. You're going to battle in many areas in your life. There's a spiritual battle. It comes down here with dark forces and temporal battle. And you'll have battles in your family and others. So be like Richard the Lionhearted. Have courage, have resilience, and like these men who won the day, and you can win your day, right? You can possess these virtues and win your day. Thank you. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and share.